Hello, my name is RadHead and I'm a video game collector, aka Menace to Society! For about 4 years, I've been doing all this and I thought it would be fun to talk about it. That's right, I'm doing a storytime video. Sell out! Ever since I was a small ginger child, I've always loved playing video games. The first game my 75 IQ brain remembers playing is LEGO Indiana Jones 2 for the Xbox 360. Now, I really loved the demo for this game, and apparently I played it so much, I ended up getting the full game as a present, and I probably screamed and threw LEGO out the window when I got it. After that, I had this phase where I was obsessed with LEGO games. It was all I played, and I probably had an unhealthy addiction to them. After I hit around the age of 11, I just kind of stopped playing them, and I still got no reason why. They're all pretty fun, but I just can't sit down and play one. During those years, that's when I would discover retro games due to there being an SNES and Game Boy in the storage room. I remember the first retro games I played being The Lion King and the Game Boy Donkey Kong. In both of those games, I never really got past the first act because of my 75 IQ, but I still really enjoyed them, and that's when a thought hit my brain. I could buy more. And that's when I bought my first retro game. I remember liking the Game Boy so much, I wanted to go to a flea market and buy another game because apparently I didn't know secondhand game shops existed. I was walking around and saw literally nothing, but then the corner of my eye saw something. The unnamed game store for copyright reasons. I was surprised by all the retro games the owner had, and there was so much there. So I bought Tetris on the Game Boy. Yes, I could have bought that copy of Mario on the Sega Genesis, but no, I got Tetris. I remember playing the hell out of that copy, and I loved it. For the first year or so, I remember always going to flea markets for video games. The ones I would go to were usually pretty close together and always seemed to have people selling stuff there. Sadly, my favorite out of the two ended up closing and then got replaced by a flea market that's more empty than the space I'm talking in. I'm lonely. In these flea markets, I remember getting so many random games like Yoshi's Island and Yoshi on the Game Boy. Yes, I think I had an unhealthy addiction to Yoshi. To this day, I still buy stuff at flea markets due to just how enjoyable it is. I made so many memories at flea markets, like this one time 2 years back when I and Ventus went to see what we could find. I remember him not finding anything but me. I saw Toy Story on the Sega Genesis. The thing was, I was $1 short, and I had to do something I'd never done before. I had to haggle. This is something I've never done in my entire life. What if it went wrong? What if... Hey, is $7 good? Yeah, sure, I don't get paid enough for this crap. I still find it funny to this day how easy it was for me to lower the price of that, and I got no idea why. There was also this other time I saw a mint condition copy of Klonoa on PS1 for $3, and I ended up getting uni racers because, like I said before, I have a 75 IQ, and I throw LEGO at the window, so let's not talk about it. I also quite enjoy checking out secondhand game shops and pawn shops. A lot of these stores tend to have pretty great customer service as well. In my opinion, going to the small local businesses is the definitive way to buy video games. I remember this one time I went to the grand opening of the uncopyrighted loyalty-free game store. There was so much, and I loved how decorated it was with boxes and posters. So I bought Pac-Man 2 for the SNES. I also remember bringing up the fact that I had a YouTube channel to the worker there. So yeah, I basically walked into a game store and said, "Subscribe to Super Comedy Boy so you can see my Slither.io gameplay." I got made fun of so much for those videos, and I can see why. I think the only smart decision I ever made at one of those stores when I was younger is when I bought Pokemon Red on the Game Boy, because that is still the only Pokemon game I finished besides Sun. But if I say that I finished Pokemon Sun, I'm gonna be yelled at by the entire population of the world. Do you guys remember Crash Bandicoot? Yes, one of the best series of platformers ever made. My first Crash game was Wrath of Cortex. Now, before you get the pitchforks out and kind of cancel me on Twitter for whatever reason, this was due to me getting a GameCube in a bundle with Shadow the Hedgehog and Wrath of Cortex. I really think this explains why I finished games like Gex 2 and not Breath of the Wild. Now, this may seem like a myth, but expos and conventions were a thing once. For a while now, I've been wanting to go to PAX, but that ain't happening anytime soon. A few years back, there used to be this expo for retro gaming that I would go to every year. I remember being absolutely mesmerized the first time I went. There were so many vendors selling games and merch for games. every time I would end up being there the whole day just because of how much stuff was being sold. So every year I would never walk out empty-handed. Now, on the other hand, I've only been able to go to one convention, and that is EGLX. This is probably the farthest I've ever traveled for one of these things, and it was 100% worth it. I had so much fun at that convention and absolutely loved it. There weren't many AAA games, but I don't mind that at all. Going to small booths and trying out games was a blast. I even beat the devs at a party game they made. Now, thrift stores are probably my go-to way of collecting video games these days, when the government isn't, you know.
Open, close. Open, close.
My main stores I check out are usually Goodwills and Value Villages since there are so many of them. Most of the time, I do tend to walk out empty-handed, but on random occasions, I do find a few cool things, like this copy of Klonoa for the Wii that I'm scared to play. Going into one of these stores is always an adventure, and even if I never find anything, I'll still go. Just because we are on the topic of thrift stores, I think I should talk about the tale of how I got 2 copies of Sneak King. So basically, I was at the thrift store and saw Sneak King, so ironically, I bought the game. But then when I moved on and checked out the next store, there was a copy in better condition, so I got that too because, like I said multiple times beforehand, I have an IQ of a doorknob. Thrift stores are probably the cheapest and most efficient way to build up a collection of games, which is why it'll always be my go-to strategy for buying them. So yeah, that's basically everything I can remember. Video game collecting is probably one of my favorite hobbies. When scalpers don't ruin it! I always think that if you enjoy something and it isn't harmful, go for it. Collecting is meant to be fun and enjoyable, whether it be video games, movies, records, or jars, I ain't judging. Be yourself. That's what makes you your own person, and most importantly, don't throw Lego out the window.